Welcome back to the 13th pick. We have a really special guest today. We got Mike Vorkunov from The Athletic. And we're going to talk about the Knicks real quick, go over the season, go over the expectations. So we're going to start off with the offseason. So we know that they got a new front office, new coach. They drafted some young players, Obi Toppin. They also brought in some veterans like Austin Rivers. So Mike, can we just get your thoughts on the moves they made or like what direction they're going in?
Yeah, I mean the offseason was pretty quiet for them. There wasn't any kind of blockbuster moves. I don't know who the best player they acquired this offseason was in free agency is probably, I guess I would say Alec Burks. But these aren't the types of moves that'll get a lot of attention. They're kind of small roster fitting moves to create some spacing. With Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson, there's a bit of duplication at the center spot. So I don't know if you want to look at them as complements or supplements, whatever in the rotation. But this is year one for the Leon Rose regime, and I think they're just they're essentially building out slowly. They missed out on Gordon Hayward, and so they have a roster that's going to have to grow through development because there's a lot of young players. They have I think multiple lottery picks. I think 4 or 5, if I remember off the top of my head. And so that's the way the Knicks would have to grow, and especially this season, unless there's something coming down the road, it's going to be probably a rough year, wins and losses wise. But that's why you hire someone like Tom Thibodeau who can maximize the roster from game to game. And so I think the real action will probably be next summer, whatever that turns out to be. And this year will be kind of a slow buildup, kind of a prologue really type of year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually do agree with you too. I feel like it's kind of like a process for the Knicks, and hopefully they could just stick to the process and like find who their building blocks really are, whether it be RJ, whether it be Mitchell Robinson. I think that's where the confusion with the Knicks really lies, because they always want to like jump to conclusions. They always want to get that Kyrie, KD, or Zion, and I'm not necessarily sure if that's the best situation for them. So I feel like if they could set some sort of like a culture, I think that'd be really great. What do you think are some of like the building blocks for the Knicks? Like, who are the players that they should build around?
Well, I mean, it's RJ Barrett, it's Mitchell Robinson, it's Obi Toppin now.
Okay.
RJ last year, number 3 pick, Obi Toppin, number 8, and then Mitchell Robinson was a find in the second round in 2018. So those are the 3 main guys. They're each 22 or younger, and that's what they're building around at the moment. And we'll see what kind of players those guys become. RJ Barrett had a really inefficient rookie year. He's got talent, obviously, he's got pedigree. We'll see what becomes of him. And Mitchell Robinson is a center in a league that deprioritizes centers if they can't create their own shot or they're not an elite defensive anchor type of player. And Obi Toppin is the 8th overall pick. And historically, that's not some place where you get an all-star. So we'll see what becomes of it. But those 3 guys are really kind of their foundation at the moment in terms of players in the franchise already.
Yeah.
I personally like agree with you too. I think those 3 are the main players of the organization, especially if they want to build on those.
Yeah. So I just have a quick question about the development because we see that they have RJ Barrett, who's the number 3 pick, but then they didn't really provide like the spacing around him. And they brought in Nerds and Wall from Mitchell Robinson, and then they also have Obi Toppin playing behind Julius Randle. They have a bunch of young point guards, but they're also like they have a lot of point guards as well, some veterans, some young players. So what do you think they're doing with their development here?
They have the last few years of development really didn't work out. It was hard to see growth really from any of their young players. There weren't any wins that they could point to. It seems like they're investing a lot more now under the new regime, under the new coaching staff. They have several assistant coaches who are kind of noted for their development and the work they've done with other young players, whether it be in college or around the league. So that's really going to be kind of I guess the testament to whether or not they've bought into more development as an organization or whether it's just kind of like a buzzword, right? So we'll see what happens with, Robinson, with Barrett, with Toppin, Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox. There's young talent there. It's just both on the player and the organization to make something of it. So it's hard to tell without being involved either within the organization or just being around them on a day-to-day basis, which is, obviously something that no one is doing right now in the media to say what they're doing development-wise. But it's something that it does seem like they're at least kind of putting more resources towards.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I have another question for you. What are your expectations and goals for the next season? Like, what would be considered a good next season? Because I don't think they're gonna go to the playoffs or anything, or anywhere close to that. So, as far as development goes or expectations goes, what are some expectations for you?
It's, there's somewhere I would say you can put them around somewhere around 25 win team during a normal 82 game schedule. So, we can all do our multiplication and division there ourselves.
Okay.
But I'd say really a win, like a successful season for them next year is if RJ Barrett gets better, if Mitchell Robinson gets better, Frank Ntilikina, like all those guys, if all their young players improve, I think more so than the record itself, that will be a successful season.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
So while we're on the topic of development, there was one guy that I wanted to bring up, Alonzo Trier, who was obviously he had a really good rookie season with the Knicks and he got waived in his second year. And the way I saw him as a fan favorite and one of the biggest markets that had a really great skill set. But they waived him and he's not really on a team right now either. So I don't know if I'm missing something, but I don't really understand why he's not on a team right now. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, he went undrafted too, so it's not he was like a great talent. He could score for sure, but mainly, he was an isolation scorer. He didn't really show other parts of his game, whether it's a passer defensively, even as like a pull-up shooter. And unless you're really elite at, kind of having to create for yourself and being that type of scorer, it's hard to demand a lot of minutes or roster spot. This is, he was coming off the bench. So if you're coming off the bench, you have to kind of be able to work within a team format rather than be someone who is, I guess, the center of the offense when you come out there. Yeah. So, I'm probably a little surprised that he still hasn't signed with the team yet, just because he does have some clear skill. But, I wasn't that surprised that they waived him, especially since he was going to be a free agent this past offseason anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like he's talented enough to make a team as well. Like his skill set is there, and I feel like if he has like a certain type of role provided, even coming off the bench, whether that be the offensive boost for a lot of teams, I think he could definitely provide that. That's why I was a little surprised with the Knicks too, because I feel like they lack scoring. I'm not like a huge Knicks fan, but I do keep up with their talent and what they're trying to do, and I feel like this team doesn't really have that scoring push, in my opinion, and like they have, it's kind of like all over the place. So maybe a guy like Trier would have been good. Like I know they tried the Michael Beasley experiment before, and that never really worked either. Like it stayed for like about a year, even though he was some sort of a fan favorite too. But I think they're trying to look for like a player that they could build towards the future with. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, they're looking for guys that can build towards the future, and he was a little bit older. And again, if you're really only NBA skills scoring, but then you don't do anything else, and it's kind of hard to fit you within the team format when you're on the court. You're gonna struggle to gain, like a lot of stability in your career until you're able to fit in. And I think for Trier, that's going to be kind of the key for his career is just changing his game more so just from an isolation scorer to more of a team concepts type of guy.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, we just wanted to ask you about because we see the Knicks, they get clowned a lot on the social media. There's a lot of memes around them. So looking at that, do you think there's any misconceptions about the Knicks? Something that people just keep talking about that's not even true, whether it's about like the organization, the talent, James Dolan, whatever it is?
I mean, the Knicks are kind of stuck in like this kind of repeating cycle of bad publicity, right? And they're a bad franchise that's had a number of like embarrassing incidents in the past. And sometimes they do bring it upon themselves and they do make things worse upon themselves. And they just kind of become the butt of their joke, the bottom of the joke across the league, and they can't get themselves out of that position. And really the only thing that'll do it, at least initially, is just winning. And they haven't been able to do that. They've got 7 straight losing seasons, right? And so until they're able to do that and at least kind of change the narrative about them from a kind of a laughing stock type of organization, both on and off the court. At least if they could win, they can change half of that narrative and try to get themselves going forward. But they haven't been able to build any momentum yet in that regard. So really that's kind of been the problem for them more than anything else. And that's what it always boils down to in sports anyway. It's just like whether you win or you lose, and they just haven't been able to win.
Yeah.
To just add to that, I feel like when it comes to momentum, the only momentum they've had is obviously Melo before, and after that transitioning, it was probably Kristaps Porzingis. But they did develop. He was a really good player, developed him, but unfortunately things just didn't work out in New York for him, and they traded him. I think that was a really big blow for the organization because finally you hit on that lottery, even though he was the fourth pick, I believe. And when he came in, it was like, why did they draft him? Why did they get someone else? Right? He was quite hated on in the beginning, but when they got him, they realized he's like a really, really good player, a potential superstar type of player. Obviously, that didn't work out. They traded him for Dennis Smith Jr. and that experiment hasn't really worked out either. So it's just like Knicks are kind of like all over the place for me when it comes to like developing talent and everything.
Yeah. I mean, that was, it was a clear win in the draft for them, and then they traded him way before the end of his first contract, which is really unheard of, especially for good rookies or for good guys on their rookie deal. So that was the, another kind of, confusing move, and it's just been one bad decision after another, really, and that's affected their reputation.
As you are, another question I have for you. As you are like a media member, I'm sure you've heard of Kyrie's comments as of late about the media backlash and all that stuff. What are your thoughts on Kyrie calling media members pawns and everything? As you are a media member.
I mean, look, I don't like it, right? I want more media access. I want everyone talking to the media at all times. I thought it was kind of short-sighted. I don't understand the logic behind it. I don't understand just the thinking behind it. But Kyrie does what Kyrie does. So, that's I don't know what else. That just kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So, Mike, before we let you go, I just want to talk about how the Knicks are always going for like that big superstar free agency, and no one's really obviously signed there yet. I think Melo, he wasn't even a free agent, but he was the last like big star that really wanted to come to the Knicks. But you see, the Knicks are always in rumors. So, what do you think is the future with the Knicks? Do you think they're going to try to go like the Nets route where they develop the young talent and establish that culture with Tom Thibodeau, and then maybe that attracts a superstar? Or do you think they're banking on one of the current players on the roster taking that leap and becoming a superstar?
Well, I mean, I think what made the Nets so attractive was that their development in-house first, that they were able to really develop a lot of guys who came out of nowhere, like Spencer Dinwiddie, and that made them palatable to Kyrie and KD, and as just kind of a franchise that stars could go to and trust. So I think they'll probably try to do both. They'll try to develop Barrett and Robinson and Toppin, and also just kind of refurbish the organization in a way that does make them, a destination for free agents or for stars who want out and want to find a new team. I think any good team really has to do both, right? You look at the Clippers, they did that. Like, really the only one that hasn't was like the Lakers, but they're LA and it's the Lakers and they play by different rules than everyone else. So I think you have to be able to manage both tracks. You have to be able to develop your players internally and then also put your organization in a way where it is attractive for stars and free agents and all those type of players.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, they definitely made the move so far with the new front office. They brought a winning coach in. Maybe they changed the culture up. I think they're on the right track so far.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's the hard thing. We just don't know yet. It's only been, a few months of this, and there's really no track record to go off for Leon Rose. But I guess that'll be the interesting this latest era of Knicks basketball.
Yeah, super excited to see what they do because, as we know, they are like a pretty prestigious franchise, and we really want to see a team that this big. We want to see them not be bad, basically. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, Mike. We really appreciate you.
I really appreciate
what else you want to add about the Knicks before the season starts?
No, that's all I got. I think we've hit most of the main touch points with them, and it'll be an interesting year for sure. It always is with the Knicks somehow.
Yeah,
Great. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, man. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation we had with Mike. You guys can check him out on the Athletic NBA covering the Knicks, or you can check out his socials. Link is in our description alongside our socials as well. Go check that out. Go check out the rest of our videos and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, man. Peace out.